Welcome to Networking, our journal's podcast about the network's friends and supporters all across the nation. It's a privilege today to speak with Pat and Norm Hood, our network-affiliated instructors in South Bend, Indiana, working the Defensive Solutions School. Let me start by asking each of you a little bit about your backgrounds in self-defense skills and how you came to be instructors.
Well, I'll defer to Pat first, ladies first.
Okay. I came through this because of Norman. As a military policeman and early married, he introduced me to weapons and I enjoyed it. And I shot better than he did sometimes, so that was always fun. But then he decided that we needed to start a business. And it was important that I be a part of that because of the appeal to it, ladies. And I have a unique point of view. So it just has been an incredible journey, and we've made a difference in people's lives, and that's what's great.
Well, for me, it was like I'm sure a lot of people that are members. You know, I grew up shooting with my dad. I still have my dad's .22 rifle that he gave me. I joined the Army when I was 19, and they made me a military policeman, and that was kind of scary when I think back on it. But so literally, I've been carrying a gun on my hip since I was 19 years old. I'm 70 now. So I've been carrying a gun on the right side of my hip that long. I was an MP, retired from the Army. We retired out of Alaska, and I went right to work for the Alaska State Troopers. I was also teaching firearms on the side. And then we decided to move to South Bend in 2011, and it started with, let's just teach a couple of classes. And I had been not only firearms instructor, but a defensive tactics instructor and pepper spray instructor, a baton instructor, all those things. So we moved here, and we wanted to start just do a couple of classes and started our own business. And it started with the expansion started with going to our church and looking at, okay, so what happens if there's a problem here in the church? And we started exploring all that and created our business, started teaching from there. Now it's church security teams. Now it's business awareness, safety. It's ladies self-defense. It's not only handguns, rifles, shotguns. We're traveling quite a bit. And then I teach a martial art that involves firearms.
Well, and one of the things that struck me from your website was that phrase, and I want to get this right, proven on the street, not competition. I'd like to learn more about how that influences the classes that you build, your curriculum. Well,
when we have a regular group of Hojutsu students. Hojutsu simply means fire arts school. And think of it as a modern martial art for modern times. It is based on some karate fundamentals, but our founder, who was a Army vet, Vietnam vet, long-term retired Alaska State Trooper lieutenant, a longtime martial artist, and what he did was blended a number of things into a legitimate martial art. It actually started about 2001, and that what we can say is the training that we do specifically with handguns, that is the focus of our art. We've had 27 people that involved in shootings. Those people that are involved in shootings with handguns have had 100% hits. So there's been no errant rounds. When we talk about us proven art, we're talking about we have 27 people that have been involved in gunfights. Our total hit rate is 99.8%.
Is that widely line of duty or is that private citizens?
It's private citizens and law enforcement.
Because the hit ratio is pretty phenomenal, and I think that before people get critical, you need to understand just how dynamic and chaotic a situation can be where you might be delivering force at the end of your pistol, and that's a phenomenal hit rate, Norm. I'm bowled over.
Well, and again, that's just the art the art has us practicing a lot, and that's really the key. We practice. But the other thing that we know is a firearm is not always going to be the answer. In fact, it probably never be the answer to a self-defense situation. What we do know is you might need pepper spray, you might need other tools, or better yet, we spend a lot of time in every class talking about awareness.
Yes. Well, and that really comes to our, we think of martial arts, perhaps incorrectly, we think of martial arts as kung fu and the things that we saw in the movies, and I think that we don't give it a broad enough definition, and I'm wondering really how broad can the definition of martial arts be? In your worldview, it does include use of modern weapons as well as use of body weapons and tasers and pepper spray, whatever the person can have. How broad, how far can we stretch the definition?
Well, what we do in for instance, in Hojutsu, to give you how broad a spectrum it is,
yes.
When we start a new student, they start as a white belt, as they would in karate. Mm-hmm. And one of the first things that we teach them, along with the protocols that go with conventional martial arts, if there is such a thing, they attend to Stop the Bleed class. So when they're on the range for the first time, they've already had some first aid training. We take it from there. We go into drills, actually striking a mitt. From there, we get into pepper spray. We use a jo, which is basically a short staff, and like a broomstick. Okay. So we use self-defense techniques just based off of that. We incorporate a taser. We incorporate, at the same time, we're still teaching fundamental safety and firearms fundamentals. Our first kata is actually a kata done with a training pistol. So we're combining martial arts skills, striking, kicking, blocks, with actually drawing a pistol, drawing it and pivoting, drawing it and turning 180 degrees. And we include weapon retention and weapon takeaway techniques in that first kata. So that's how broad ours is.
Well, and I really like what I'm hearing here, because one of my questions was going to be whether the Jiu-Jitsu track stood on its own and then the defensive handgunning track was run separately, because in my limited experience, you even get strange disconnects like, what's my interview position? What's my ready position? Are they at odds? I think in the firearms world, we've all had students say, but I was taught in my physical skills class to stand with my feet this way. We get that conflicting idea of how you should position yourself, which frankly for me is probably running like hell, but that's another situation. I also have noticed that you talked about movement integrated with your draw, and I think that's a huge step forward. So if I signed up as a student for a defensive handgun class, I would literally start with these underlying foundational things that you just spelled out for us?
You could, or you could do either. We do regular defensive handgun classes. I'll do an urban rifle class. I'll do a shotgun class. You can do that separately. You don't have to participate in Hojutsu. Or you can, if you knew what we were doing and you wanted to come in and say, okay, I want to just do a Stop the Bleed class, then you could join us at any point, come in and do the Stop the Bleed class and get that training also. So it's the Hojutsu track is really kind of two. One, if you just wanted to learn to shoot with us, you could. Or we have regularly scheduled handgun classes. I do regularly scheduled practice sessions. So they're an organized practice session offering you to come in. And this practice session, in fact, we're doing one Tuesday. That practice session is going to be handguns. Mm-hmm. And you come in, so long as you've had some formal training, you come into the handgun class. And I've been at this long enough, I kind of have an idea what kind of drills we should be doing based on who shows up. And so we'll do a 2-hour practice session. So you have a lot of different options with what we're doing.
That fluidity is exceptional. And I think one of the things that that I hear people getting frustrated with is maybe they've taken some classes at Gunsight, maybe they've taken some classes from Clint Smith at Thunder Ranch. I realize I'm being a little Western centric because that's where I'm from, but and then they want to start with another school, and suddenly they're told, oh no, you've got to come up through level 1, level 2, level 3, and I'm hearing much more inclusiveness from you that you'll do an evaluation and you'll help that person find out where they belong with you.
Right. And again, with students, we get a lot of people, as I'm sure you've heard, oh, well, I've been shooting all my life.
Yes.
But they really have no clue how to run a firearm.
Good point.
And although I grew up under really one of Cooper's adjunct instructors, I've made 9 trips to Thunder Ranch.
Nice.
And Clint and I consider Clint to be a very good friend, Clint and Heidi. And Clint's given me permission to take whatever it is that I do that you can use, because he's all about sharing safety and things like that. But at the same time, he knows he might get a student from it too. If I do an 8-hour class, it's based on a lot of things that Clint may do over 2.5 or 3 days. And I don't have let's face it, I don't have the facility that Thunder Ranch is. But I took one of my instructor development classes under Clint. We share a lot of that same stuff. And of course, Clint is from Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is an hour and 2 hours away from us. So there's kind of a hometown connection with him and us also.
That's a good example, and I love what you're explaining and how you do. So Pat, talk to me a little bit about what you do. Are you exclusively teaching with the ladies? Are you doing integrated classes where you're there to ease the transition for the ladies? Tell me a little bit about your part in this.
Well, my part is to be eyes and ears for Norman, and use my intuition to a certain degree, because I can anticipate some issues. Ladies, we offer that so that they are more comfortable speaking with another lady. We can use the same language. We have been there. This was not my choice a long time ago when I started shooting with Norman, and it's become my passion in some respects, in that I feel that we need to take care of ourselves. As a female, I can't always depend on someone to be there. I need to be well instructed and capable to defend myself and my family. Being in a church as well is very important to me, keeping those parishioners safe and helping them there. Children, what do you look for as a parent? What do I want to see? How do I keep my child safe when there's a weapon in the house? Those kinds of things are very important to all of this, and it's safety first, always, and how to keep my eyes open, and what am I looking for, and what do I do.
One of the things that Pat didn't mention that is extremely valuable on the range is she's left-handed, I'm right-handed, and so whenever we have a left-handed person up there, assuming they have a gun that's completely ambidextrous, but Pat's right there so she can show them how a left-handed person is doing it instead of someone seeing how a right-handed person is doing it. We've done a few classes where we do team tactics, where what do we do if we're out? And, it starts as simple as Pat walks on my left side because I'm right-handed. I'm carrying a gun on my right side. She's left-handed. She's carrying a gun on her left side. So we don't, inhibit anyone's draw stroke if we should ever need to. So it's things like that. So that's another thing that Pat adds to this business.
We're a team, and when we go to a restaurant, I know where I sit, and there's a reason for it. I know where Norman sits, and there's a reason for it. We're all watching the door in case something happens. It's always in the back of your mind. You get to a point where you've done it for so long that it's just second nature.
Yes.
And it's not that, Pat just defaults to my skill set because I have a different skill set than she does. So that's it.
Pat used the important word, and she said team, because of the successful teams, each player has a critical role that she plays, that he plays. And it's not that one of them is telling the other one what to do. She said, I know where to sit. And I think just as importantly, she knows the rationale. She's been part of that decision. It's not that Mr. Smith told Mrs. Smith, here's what you do. It's not that at all.
Right. He also, it's always kind of interesting because he relies on my intuition as well. So if something just doesn't feel right and I can't put my finger on it, I'll tell him and we leave.
That's splendid. I remember John and Vicki Farnham talking about that, and John saying that there'd been times that Vicki had said something's wrong, and since they couldn't put their finger on it,
Right.
they made that choice that it was not safe to be there, and that takes a lot of guts to
Right.
trust your intuition enough and to express that to somebody. I don't feel right in here. What is it?
We stress a lot of this when we have in a class. It's just that, I'll tell the guys, you need to listen to the ladies in your lives because they just feel things differently than we do. And you need to allow them to be able to say that. So that gets addressed in every class that we do, whether it's a lady self-defense class, we'll tell the ladies that, or if it's a handgun class, we have a couple there. But Pat and I also have kind of an agreement too, where she buys me guns, I buy her diamonds, so it works for us.
Works for me.
You guys are my role models. This is great. What takeaway would you like network members to learn from Pat and Norm Hood today?
Get training.
So good.
And a diversity in training is fine. Go to other people, see what other people are doing. Understand that you can't just go buy a handgun, and that's what people seem to focus on. They don't look at the other techniques out there. One of our hojutsu techniques is the utilization of a cane. I can take a cane anywhere in the world. And so I always have some type of tool with me. But people don't get training. They'll buy a handgun, they'll take one class maybe, and it's like, okay, I know everything there is to know, and the gun goes in a closet or a drawer somewhere, and they never do anything with it again. I mean, talk to people. There's so many other solid trainers out there. Dave Grossman is a personal friend. Dave actually got his Hojutsu black belt under my school. So, there's all these people out there and all the connections. They need to take advantage of those. Seek this stuff out. It's not cheap, but it's also a lot more expensive if something goes wrong. And having other tools means we might not get in trouble by utilizing a handgun improperly.
I love that broad range of force options you talked.
Just have a plan and play the what ifs. Talk to each other. What are we going to do if? How do we take care of this?
Words to live by, folks. And hey, network members, Norm and Pat are in South Bend, Indiana. It's worth traveling, and check their website. What is that website URL, folks?
It's defensivesolutions.com.
Perfect.
Sorry.
It's getting to be a complicated word. Check that website, members, because Norm said they're traveling a little bit, might be coming to a community near you. It would be worth the time to get to know these folks.